My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Ontario police are gang stalking the corrupt airlines at the Ontario International Airport, who are going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring. And as you document it, just like the demon in unit number 55 engages in psychological torture, immediately the demons who are monitoring everything on the venue, impeding with the ability to report to the federal government that the state of California is engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture by pacing over the venue in commercial planes in a manner that is incongruent with ever taking off from Terminal 2 or Terminal 4, as I document that on my phone, which the state is criminally monitoring in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2, in the specific environment where the fake sun rises and sets, where the fake moon is over me at night, where I have multiple shadows like I do right now at nightfall, with simultaneity to what I'm documenting on my phone, in concert with the demon that paces in a circle like a lapdog in the living room with every move that I make. The demons sound helicopter activity. This is what Mike Lorenz is engaged in it's federal stalking. This is what Paul Leon and the Ontario City Council are engaged in, and it's federal stalking. This is what the airlines, including Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, Amazon, UPS, and FedEx, using their commercial planes, and every other airline associated with the gang stalking venue the Ontario International Airport are engaging in. There is no coincidence with regard to what the Ontario Police Department are engaged in. They've done it at every single venue, monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom at Starbucks, my genitalia in the bathroom at the Open Family Community Library, my genitalia inside of the bathroom inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. They're doing it at the specific venue where I've also shown the fake sun is remaining for the duration of the day at all of those aforesaid venues, by the way, including over the Demons police station at the 2500 South Archibald Avenue. They engage in psychological torture, which is the corrupt airlines gang stalking at the Ontario International Airport, threatening my life, which they're going to be prosecuted for. It's criminal obstruction of justice. While, again, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, Frontier Airlines, the Amazon, UPS, FedEx, all of whom I've documented on video, by the way, gang stalking with the state for years. And as I document them on my phone, the demon in Unit 55, pacing with the demons by helicopter, engages in what is simultaneous stomping, which is amplified in sound, designed to obstruct justice. That is to terrorize, to harass, to traumatize, to psychologically torture, to the point to deter you from documenting it. And it's not a coincidence that as I document the airlines, I continuously do so and identify it in my documentation and text. The demons arrive with simultaneity in helicopter, like they are doing on an ongoing basis. All right, this is the prosecution of the Ontario International Airport. Alan D. WAPNER, a demon that's sitting on the corrupt Ontario City Council, he's going to be removed. He's also engaged in the corruption of the Omnitrans bus line, heavily documented gang stalkers as well. What these companies are doing, the transportation lines, Also interstate commerce via the airlines at the venue of the airport, which is going to be shut down. The entity is engaging in what is threatening my life and safety and well-being and liberty, while the police arrive to communicate a threat to obstruct justice to try to stop me from reporting it to the feds. You're going to prison for that. This demon's name, who's gang stalking in the helicopter, they're going to prison. All of these demons here in units 33 through 64 are going to federal prison, and they are monitoring. There's one shadow, there's two shadows. Oh, here's another shadow right here, and there's multiple shadows right here on the ground. So let me show you, that is indeed gang stalking by the police, who are keeping my communication devices, keeping my physical movements as the demon possessed are monitoring you physically, and they're also monitoring my genitalia. They're gross sex offenders who are obsessed with my nudity. They're obsessed with my genitalia and everything concerning it, and also everything that I'm reporting to the federal government. This is why Paul Leon is done with politics. He's done with being a mayor in Ontario. He's a sex offender, and the entity threatens my life as I document the fact that the airlines in Ontario from the Ontario International Airport are engaged in state surveillance. And this is the tactic of the domestic terrorists. They engage in threatening by helicopter, and that's this heliport. And these demons, gang stalking Mike Lorenz, they are going to be permanently removed from law enforcement, and they're engaged in open domestic terrorism. This is not a third world country. This is Southern California, where the homes in California are on fire, and this is why they don't have enough resources and manpower and training to put them out adequately and effectively, because they're wasting millions of dollars on domestic terrorism surveillance. It's P.O.C. This crossing path, this is a direct threat to your life, and you're going to prison for that. And so are the people of the state. Here's another shadow over here. That's not the light activity that's caused from the light fixtures. So that's the government, again, engaging years of what is providing the evidence to support the permanent disbanding of the Ontario Police Department. The entirely illegitimate state actor, Mike Lorenz, just like before him, Derek Williams. The illegitimacy of the public official, Paul Leon, and Alan D. Wapner, who is the president over the corrupt airport that is engaged in state surveillance, patrolling over the senior citizen complex. All right, and doing so repeatedly and more loudly as I continue documenting them on my website. This is the POC.wordpress.com, and on the YouTube channel. Okay, they're doing so with regard to the pattern of conduct that's being published online, and it is a criminal act of obstruction of justice while doing so. And they're doing it in concert with this demon right here, who's going to a mental asylum. In unit number 55, she does not sleep, she does not abandon position directly over me. And as I document the airlines who are going to be prosecuted for domestic terrorism, they're engaged in criminal surveillance. They're wasting millions of dollars of the city using commercial planes, not for destinations, not for being paid money to take flights and take people to their destinations, but to engage in gang stalking, just like the people of the state. This is the unemployed gang stalking with the city of Ontario. These are the people of the state that are gang stalking as the police department and as the airport, which my documentation unilaterally establishes. My documentation already shows that. For you to fly over my head in this specific environment with simultaneity to what I'm documenting on my phone, that is ongoing corroborating evidence, which is not helpful to American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, Avianca, Frontier Airlines, Amazon, UPS, FedEx, who are gang stalking also in their vehicles through their demon-possessed employees. They're fully engaged in it, and they're using commercial planes. That's also why Paul Leon is done with being the mayor here. He's been presiding over domestic terrorism. You are done. You're a demon, you're a fake pastor, and you're also a criminal trying to hide that. All right, and that's why the police are gang stalking over the senior citizen complex. It's currently 11:20 p.m. This is the impunity of the corrupt government. All right, and they engage in threatening American citizens. They hate the Constitution. They hate American citizens that enforce their rights. That's also why those that are domestic enemies, that's what they are. While they're gang stalking by the police, while they're gang stalking by the airports, while they're gang stalking as a mayor, they're enemies, they're domestic enemies, and they actually hate the Constitution and your enforcement of their rights. And I continuously show that through my evidence, and it is the quintessence of what is demonstrating how you are unfit for office and you're not going to stay in office. Those are the people of the state gang stalking. It's called amplification and directed light. It's the POC. It is currently 11:20 p.m. While this is evidence of an entire city being a sex offender monitoring inside of a private space and engaged in federal stalking, monitoring on communication devices while they seek to obstruct justice using psychological torture. That psychopath that's gang stalking in the helicopter is going to federal prison. The people of the state gang stalking at the Ontario International Airport, not only is that airport going to be shut down, and those public officials who are demon-possessed sex offending gang stalkers and domestic enemies who derive pleasure from inflicting psychological torture by stalking in planes, those are the people that are engaging in what is murders, not accidents by planes, by the way. They're not accidents. They're gang stalking with the people of the state. They're all going to prison. These demons aren't asleep in directed light. These demons aren't asleep while the state is stalking by plane and helicopter. These demons aren't asleep as I continuously document the unemployed one in 55. This is POC. It is 11:21 p.m. right, it is currently Thursday, January 30th, 2025. It's 11:27 p.m. And what you just listened to, as I described it in the video, is the criminal act of obstruction of justice upon what is the ordinary group stalking by the state, acting via the city of Ontario, specifically through the demon possessed, who are currently a part of the Ontario Police Department. Very heavily documented state actor, entirely illegitimate, literally the template for recognizing how state surveillance is operated in the United States. It is the literally enabled and facilitated reliant upon the corruption of the executive branch, where the police are the starting point for the criminal abuse of the justice system, of the mental health, for example, program where the entity seeks to defame in order to kidnap, and kidnapping could be for criminal charges that the target individual did not commit, criminal charges, or a diagnosis of a mental illness that the target individual does not have, does not suffer from, while they are targeting one that they intend to either, it's actually, you could be kidnapped and murdered, but again, to murder or kidnap, just to generally speak. The fact pattern regarding my circumstance, which again, it is something that I have been able to survive, and so I can speak directly to it, having already established that the state is indeed targeting me, and also not only providing a tutorial of how that targeting system operates, and also what is the inspiration. It is demonic activity. These are the demon possessed that are engaged in terrorism in the United States, and they use all manner of different narratives in order to throw you off about what's the root cause of what's going on. Oh, it's racism. Oh no, it's political. They have all manner of different sort of narratives, and I want to be clear. Racism in and of itself is amplified plain activity of these third parties that I'm going to name at 11:29 p.m. Coming from the Ontario International Airport. That's impunity that the entity is going to be prosecuted for. It's also psychological torture. So if you recall what I documented yesterday, as I begin the podcast, and I was proceeding to go through what happened when I woke up at 5:08, the demon upstairs, just like a lap dog, begins running about, pacing about. Amplified noise. Then the demons join in by helicopter. And this is because they're fearful of what it is that I'm talking about. And to do so is also the evidence that you're monitoring what it is that I'm doing. That's a criminal act. Upon existing law, it's a criminal act, but it's upon federal group stalking monitoring. So this is a sex offense by the entity. The airport represents the city. The city is engaged in targeting, which the Ontario Fire Department has already proven. The Ontario Police Department has already proven. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department as well. They're fully engaged in that pattern of conduct. And the people of the state, the demon possessed, you see them under the fake sun. You see them amongst engineered light. You see them engaging in their stalking in the path methods. This is the public corruption issue. Gang stalking by Ontario International Airport at 11:29 p.m. It's the same tactic that you saw. So you're not ever marrying yourself to the method. The entity is engaging in the same thing. It's the same condition. It's demon possession. Satan's character, Satan's personality is that he begins tap dancing and wanting you, ooh, look over here, look over here. But what Satan fails to recognize is that when you're doing that tap dance is additional federal charges. It's additional damages. It's on ongoing further exposure. And there are repercussions for being public officials who disregard the Constitution, who have a disdain for American citizens enforcing their constitutional rights, who actually show what is a secret hatred for such things. And that's literally what's being exposed and communicated when you are in these positions and engaging in this level of impunity. Okay, that's what Satan does not recognize. And that's relevant also to what? The mental illness that's exhibited by the demon possessed who are gang stalking, so focused on me, and they fail to recognize how they are harming their own interests. There will not be any sacrifice of me, and I am not present and alive to not tell all of Satan's secrets. That's exactly why I'm here. And you need to know who Satan is using. You need to know the positions that they hold. You need to know how they actually disdain other human beings, including themselves. And I'm making a separation between Satan, who is a spirit, and Satan, who uses vessels. So even the vessel that Satan is using, that demon possessed person, Satan hates them. They will harm themselves in trying to target somebody else. They will harm other people while they are focusing on harming someone else. So that's what gang stalkers do in planes and helicopters. And you're calling it, for example, an accident in the sky space, the disappearance of planes just into the ocean, just disappeared. These are murders. They're not accidents. The demon possessed that are engaged in this pattern of conduct in Ontario, this is showing you what's going on in the country. These demon possessed people have access to pilot licenses. All right. Demon possession is an invisible condition. Domestic terrorism in this country has been underway for a very long time. Targeting American citizens is a way of it's the American way, and we call ourselves on the surface distinct from third world countries. But I just captured video of the government, supposedly my government, targeting me, terrorizing me in America, in Southern California, in a helicopter, as though they are going to pull out a machine gun and shoot down at me like I'm a foreign threat to the country. And they are, as the evidence has already shown, they're stalking me. They're stalking me. There's no ambiguity. They're clearly engaged in targeting. The timing is the evidence of targeting. I'm documenting on my phone. Also the venue itself, the entity keeps the specific environment here. The fake sun rises and sets here. The targeting by the engineered light. There's no sunlight that's ever going to create there's no sun that, first of all, will be stationary over one apartment building and throughout the whole city and state for the duration of the day. But not only that, there's no sunlight that inside of the apartment building would create sunlight on the ceiling inside of the apartment and streaming backwards behind the front door. None of that is sunlight. This is the evidence of what is stalking, targeting, the surveillance system that's underway, the system of surveillance, and doing so by helicopter is merely one method as the state acts directly. This is what this unemployed demon in unit number 55 is doing on a 24-hour basis. And she does it on behalf of those whom she shares interests with. As I document Alan D. WAPNER, a demon-possessed public official who was going to be removed from public office because he's obsessed with my genitalia, because he's monitoring my devices in violation of existing federal law, amongst other reasons. He's a domestic enemy who threatens my life while I document him with the corrupt, demon-possessed police, who have a documented pattern of engaging in criminal acts of kidnapping, because that's no tortious false imprisonment and false arrest. Those are criminal acts to obstruct justice, and everyone involved in those documented criminal acts are going to prison. That's the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. This is also why those in leadership positions over the city of Ontario, Paul Leon, over the Ontario Police Department, Mike Lorenz, and everyone over the Ontario International Airport, as I document, Alan D. WAPNER, the president, and everyone, they are not exempted from federal charges. The entity is mindful and deliberate in everything that it is engaging in. So you threaten me through the city police. You threaten me through the demon-possessed entity that's gang stalking at the venue. You are directly engaged in what is the criminal acts of obstruction of justice because you're a whole psychopath that is mentally ill, thinking that, and why would you think that when I have years of evidence published on the internet, an intelligent person, someone with taking apt observation of things would see she's probably not going to stop speaking, but this mentally ill entity that is demon possessed through and through continuously engages in that, to its own demise. However, the police department is being disbanded. The Ontario International Airport is being shut down. The Ontario City Council, every single last one of them, are being removed from office. The Ontario Police Department is done with law enforcement altogether. None of them will ever fly a helicopter, ever bear a weapon, and never being in law enforcement in any territorial jurisdiction within the United States. And this is because of what they're engaged in. It's not just bad policing, it's terrorism that is not tolerated in this country. It's not tolerated. So I just want to make sure you understand all those big pictures. That's big picture, excuse me. I want to make sure you understand that. And I want to go back to what it is that I'm documenting. While at 11:29 p.m., the demons exhibit their hostility toward America, toward American citizens, toward the Constitution, and toward your audacity to enforce your rights, while they want to insist on being a sex offender. Admittedly, engaging in criminal monitoring in a private space, while acting in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap you. That's all you learn by gang stalking in commercial planes over the senior citizen complex at 11:29 at night in engineered light and in concert with the corrupt police department and the corrupt population. All angles of that criminal act is already established. All right. So moving on, 11:29 p.m. gang stalked by the Ontario International Airport, amplified in volume, which is a communication of a threat. It's the elements of monitoring to engage in louder audible activity, analogous to the demon above my head stomping louder as I identify airlines by name. That is a communication of a threat. While you are monitoring under all circumstances, you get louder, or the vibration of the building becomes more intense, or you begin flying gang stalking by helicopter. Those are all threats. You are analyzing the stalker that is demon possessed. They're engaging in demonic methods of targeting someone. And I'm providing you the translation in order to prosecute in a federal tribunal a very real occurrence, a very real case that is not impervious to exposure, to explanation, to explain it for you, to translate what the demons are doing and what they do and what they reasonably intend to do, and how you're going to hold them responsible, civilly and criminally. So, like I was stating, while I'm inside of the apartment and I am subject to what is the pattern of conduct, the entity is engaged in criminal conduct. They're always gang stalking me. But remember, the means of identifying targeting is also timing. So as I reference gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport, immediately, and that means you were already present to do that. That's very creepy when you think about what the demons are doing. Very heavy stalking going on. Very heavy duty stalking. Creeping in a commercial plane. You need to understand that's going directly to how unfit Paul Leon is. Millions, Alan D. WAPNER is. Millions and millions of dollars wasted. Abused, misappropriated, however you want to term that, on criminal activity. It is a waste to spend money like that on an American citizen. I'm not a criminal. I'm minding my business and living my life. So why are you spending millions of dollars using the commercial airline planes, using your heliport and your helicopters? All of that costs money to even use and maintain. And then you're looking at them on the news as though they can't put the fires out in Los Angeles fast enough. I want to let you know there's some malice behind what it is that you're witnessing in Los Angeles. The entity has every intent, by the way, to place their own homes on fire. Absolutely. The entity knows what's being exposed about it. The entity knows and anticipates what's happening. You're not dealing with just the physical. You're dealing with the spiritual realm. And these are demons, malicious demons. All right. And they fully are where they've been warned for years. And so I just want to give a greater context regarding that. As they are 11:39 p.m. as I press my phone screen and adjust my legs. The demon that is stalking in position in unit number 55. This is the aged elder with no job who was stalking in the path in the living room directly above me. And the ceiling in the living room cracks as evidence that the demon is stalking my movements. That's called stalking with audible activity. While a population does that, it's domestic terrorism. Anyway, the entity is doing so while I am speaking to the fact that the context regarding what it is that you're observing about California, what you're witnessing, what the government officials are, they just seem overwhelmed with. And there's context regarding what I have been documenting about the state of California in many of these neighborhoods. What's going on in San Bernardino is going on in Pasadena. By the way, I've also documented it. What's going on in Pasadena is going on in Northern California. And you also know that because of the specific environment, it's giving you knowledge about what's going on in the whole state. And that's me being very reserved, and I'm being limited because, but it does apply because while the entity keeps a fake sun over me at Woodside Senior Apartments, remember, not just over any apartment at Woodside, it's over me at this apartment 51 at Woodside. It's very specific. It's not over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, contrary to what I documented on January 30th, 2024. All right. At no point in the day is it, nor could it ever. It's also not in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's also not anywhere in Pasadena. It's also not over the Ovid Family Community Library in Ontario, while it's specifically over this apartment building where it sits for the duration of the day, where commercial planes and helicopters are used as a means of surveillance, gang stalking in demonic ways, which I've pointed out to you. Audible activity, which is amplified. This is why the masculine, she does look masculine, but she's not Hercules. And walking around in your apartment would be an inherent violation of quiet enjoyment. These are senior citizens. Nobody walking around in their apartment is creating a 24-hour disruption to quiet enjoyment. This is the means of gang stalking in a private space by the demons themselves that live at the crime scene. They're all going to prison for that. They've been set up, okay? And by set up, I mean they've been set up by, first of all, Christ Jesus is in control. He's on the throne. And so the entity that sought to target me, they found themselves targeted by the evidence that they are inevitably linked to. You're living at the crime scene, you're going to prison. You're working at the crime scene, you're going to prison. You're gang stalking in helicopter, you're going to prison. And you've also engaged in putting your hands on me. That whole police department is being disbanded. All right. And that's the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. The entity acting with impunity using every airline. This is what I'm documenting while the demon above begins stomping above with simultaneity, recognizing the targeting. While it is what it is that I'm thinking about, demons, Satan is monitoring, demons are monitoring what it is that you're thinking about. So as I am thinking about the airlines, I am typing it. I'm creating a tangible a record of what it is that I'm thinking about. That's how you are understanding what is monitoring on communication devices as well. They're literally gang stalking on their phones via phones and technology. It is an integral aspect of the P.O.C. But I want to be clear, it's also used as a means of what it is that I'm literally thinking about. Well, I'm thinking about Alaska Airlines in order to type out Alaska Airlines. And you also have the simultaneity stomping above my head the minute that I begin naming them on my phone. And as I continue documenting, that's not enough. The demons of the Ontario Police Department will stop her from documenting, will distract her enough. That's not a distraction. I'm going to go ahead and expound upon the act of terrorism that the Ontario International Airport just committed, that every single airline associated with the Ontario International Airport just committed with an intent to obstruct justice, utilizing psychological torture. The Ontario International Airport is a state actor, and all of the airlines, they represent the people of the state. They are corporate companies. They're corporate actors. They're profiting, in other words, criminally profiting while engaged in domestic terrorism in the city of Ontario. They are engaging in that which is not known. It is known, but it's going to be worldwide known, that they're engaging in what is they're actually engaged in what is nothing other than domestic terrorism. They happen to be engaged in selling tickets and providing flights to destinations. And that's like the gang stalking fire department. They are engaged in domestic terrorism. They happen to be engaged in putting out fires every now and then, but their main purpose is to engage in gang stalking, domestic terrorism in the state of California. This is how you're looking at CAL FIRE, very heavily documented. They're out there very heavily used to put out these fires in Los Angeles and amongst the different counties. They're contracted with almost every county in California. They're engaged in domestic terrorism. They're demons that were heavily gang stalking while I was at the Holiday Inn in Hesperia, where the entity kept the fake sun from rise until set. No one's forgotten that evidence. While the entity is hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments, while the entity is hovering and then pacing over me, which is documented on video. Yeah, the Ontario International Airport is being shut down. It's domestic terrorism that's underway, and it's being funded. It's being enabled, and Paul Leon knows all about it. This demon is so corrupt. That's why he has a side job, a side hustle as a pastor. This is a whole demon. Okay. This is a criminal. Okay. This is a criminal, and this criminal activity is underway. This domestic terrorism, he's fully engaged in it, fully interested in it, and repeatedly threatens my life and safety. As I document him, as I document the people of the state, I'm documenting him. As I document the state actors, I'm documenting him. As I document his little demon-possessed gang stalkers who empty the garbage, I'm documenting him. And he repeatedly engages in an ongoing and systematic means of threatening my life through the corrupt police. A bunch of puppets who are gang stalking minions who have happened to have engaged in wearing uniforms in order to masquerade as upright and legitimate law enforcement. That's what Mike Lorenz and the police department on Ontario represent. And the evidence supports that. I have hundreds and if not thousands of videos of literally just the Ontario police stalking and exhibiting demon possession, which is very disturbing. And they have been acting in furtherance of the attempt to maliciously murder and kidnap me. And because of that, they are being disbanded, and they are also going to federal prison. Every single last one, all of their records is going to be produced, because the ones that are gang stalking, as I documented, my credibility is already established. You're going to prison. Who is it that's flying in the sky space, or who is it that they maintain a record of that? And they're going to produce it. It's going to be, I'll just let you know, the names are going to be produced, because they're going to prison, every single last one of them. Every single, and if they've got the same one over and over again, I'm going to let you know they're going to prison. And the ones that engage in exhibiting mental illness by flying in circles over and over and over again, those demons, they're going to mental asylums, like the demon in unit number 55. Okay, the entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct showing impunity. And I want to make sure that I'm giving a special shout out to the criminal defendant, the Ontario International Airport, a state actor that's engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture with the intent to obstruct justice. It is the people acting in concert with the state because it's a city airport, it's a state venue. State facilitating venue, where my evidence also supports that the fake sun is over the top of my head while I'm on transportation. Again, Alan D. Wapner, associated with the corrupt transportation line Omnitrans, a gang stalker. It's not a coincidence there either. He's on the Ontario City Council. He's the president of the Ontario International Airport. He is a demon. He is entirely corrupt. And that's why what he touches is also corrupt, by the way. These are just what it is that I've told you about their condition, what it is that I've proven about their criminal conduct. You can literally follow the trail, because where Satan is, filthiness lies. You will find how corrupt and dirty they are. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I have what it is that I've already exposed about this criminal system, and I'm giving you names. It's no surprise when you will find out, oh, this company, oh, they're associated with and this company's doing that. Oh, and they were engaged in this and smuggling that and trafficking this and engaging in concealing that. It's not distinct or different, this is exactly what this public corruption is built on. These corrupt and defiled, and they're demons. You need to know they work for Satan. They're demon possessed. And I want to be clear, let me break this down again. Demon possession, if you were curious about how that manifests, it manifests in stalking somebody in a commercial plane. I mean, you're talking about somebody spiraling lipstick on their forehead and looking disheveled and like they haven't washed, dirt all over. You're talking about a demon that's wearing a nice uniform, flying a commercial airline plane, proudly bearing the badge of Delta Airlines, Alaska Airlines, America Airlines, Airlines, Avianca Airlines, China Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue Airlines, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, Volaris Airlines, Amazon Prime Air, FedEx, and UPS, United Parcel Service. I've documented, if not all of these airlines already gang stalking me under the fake sun and in direct light at nightfall in concert with the people of the state. These airlines they represent the people of the state, meaning they're not government owned per se. So they represent the people of the state, as I've made that classification merely as it's merely a means of a superficial classification, making a distinction between state action that's engaged in directly and state action that's engaged in vicariously through the people. The people, they present their companies, they present their properties, they present their business establishments, they present their training, they present their person themselves as a means of criminal facilitation. You want to use your children to gang stalk, you're going to lose those children, which that's good, because you're literally a threat to yourself and those children. All right. That's the demon in unit number 55, pacing, not going anywhere. She's walking in a circle. Okay. This is the demons reacting to what it is that I'm documenting, because they're engaged in federal stalking. And this is exactly what's underway, threatening my life. Every airline that I just named, they're engaged in a criminal threat to the life of an American citizen who was reporting the fact that they're engaged in domestic terrorism. So they want to engage in terrorism in the United States, and then you not report it to the federal government so that they can complete murdering you and kidnapping you. And if you bear any sign of reporting it, then they want to engage in harassing you and threatening you through the police even. Okay, that's what the Ontario police are. That is such an overly used tactic. It's not even funny. It's literally, oh, there goes the Ontario police. Yeah, they're stalking. If you had any questions, oh, there's the Ontario police. Yeah, she's right. That's how illegitimate the Ontario police are. It's literally an overly used tactic. They're flying in circles over a senior citizen complex, by the way, a multifamily zone, hovering so loud that I can hear it while I'm wearing headphones, by the way, listening to content, and doing so at 11 at night. That's a police department. You're talking about zoning. You're talking about quiet enjoyment. You're talking about what is on its face inappropriate for the police to be engaged in. And that's also an unreasonable disruption. All right. And it's also that which the Ontario International Airport is engaging in outside of zoning. But this is the scrutiny that they're not accustomed to and that they're not going to get, because the state is corrupt. This demon that's gang stalking with the state is not complaining, oh my goodness, the helicopter is vibrating my apartment. This demon is gang stalking with them. And you know that the fake sun is over this apartment building from beginning to the end of the day. The engineer light covers the apartment all up around the staircase. This is a whole demon, and she's going to a mental asylum. And she's so mentally ill, Satan has her under such a tight chokehold, just using her body to stomp around and monitor me out of hostility and fury, which are criminal acts of a federal nature, by the way. And she's not going to, the person that demon is using, who knows exactly what she's doing. She's not criminally insane such that she doesn't know. They know exactly what they're doing when they're pacing around. They know exactly what they're doing when they follow into the bathroom, when they follow into the kitchen, when they follow as you're walking in, and they're following as you document. They know exactly what they're doing. But she's not going to until she's standing in federal court and she's hearing that she's sentenced. She's being treated like a mental patient. She's being given regular examinations and being given medication if necessary in order to help aid with her severe mental instability. She's not going to recognize it and appreciate it until then. And that goes for the demon stalking in planes. That goes for the demon stalking in helicopter. That goes for the demon inside of her bedroom gang stalking her own daughter, Tracy Banks. Until the day, and that until the day that they answer. That's how much of a national security threat the demon possessed are, though. There's a point there. They will not appreciate it until that is a delusional psychopath who will engage in much, much, much harm inflicted upon as many people as possible if they don't get caught. Even if you survey the circumstances and a prudent person, a wise person, which you shouldn't be engaged in criminal conduct, but you have some savvy criminals out there. So a savvy criminal that's trying to lessen as much, I don't want any more damages, putting myself in that sort of position, would survey the circumstances. Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. That's not wise. A little strategic. No, you're dealing with demons. That's why you have government actors who are going to very severe consequences engaging in it. Flying, gang stalking, and helicopter flying over my head. That's the highest threat that the government poses to you. That's a threat to your life. And I have it hundreds of times by the state. Ontario Police Department, they're being disbanded. All right. And they're done with law enforcement. But I want to be clear. That's why you have that brazen, foolish, an obvious doc. I'm literally recording it. I'm going to put it on the internet. Been doing it for years. And why also? Because these demon-possessed gang stalkers that are practicing witchcraft, they assume that their spell work, that their voodoo, all the witches and warlocks associated with this coven, they thought that they were going to overwhelm me with their witchcraft and that I was going to be dead. All right? That's what they're counting. That's what they counted on, rather. Again, they're demon possessed also. So Satan has them deceived. Satan has them deceived. Even to this point, they're going to sit in federal court. The entity is facing inevitable consequences. It's going to be on the news, a point of discussion amongst many about what they knew and what they continue to do despite what they knew at that point in time, what was already documented, and about what you must have been thinking to continue doing that. These are public officials and the people of the state, even down to somebody's gang stalking mother, what she decided to do on a daily basis. And I want to be clear, she is doing what the state is doing. You're not hiding while you're in your bed, stalking in the path and in your light. By the way, this demon is not sleeping. But like I said, you can stay in your bed all night long. You're gang stalking. You're going to be locked up like everybody else. You're not exempted. Like when you go to the grocery store, when you go to work, you're not removed from the pattern of conduct. That's not what's going on. And that's not how the system works. That's why you can have anybody in the city, gang stalking in the sky space, by the way, but also coming onto the grounds for anything. Just sitting in the parking lot, turning your hazard lights on. Just sit there and monitor until I come out getting everybody's license plate. And then the entity flies over by helicopter and starts hovering, flying lower than the sun that's remaining stationary over the apartment complex. And the demons of the city of Ontario, they want to arrive and immediately empty the garbage, whatever it is to maintain those elements of monitoring. Psychopaths. The demon possessed, engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture. And this is going toward the Ontario International Airport, which shall be removed from existence because of the wastefulness of the government. It is literally a harm to the public while the taxpayers are spending money. And again, these are willing taxpayers because they're interested in gang stalking. But this is public corruption and the funds, the resources of it. It is through the Ontario International Airport and all the corrupt airlines. And millions of dollars are used on not only gassing up, but maintaining the planes. I've been documenting gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, FedEx, Amazon Prime Air, UPS, Frontier, Alaska Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines. I've been documenting them for years. It's all in my video documentation in the specific environment in conformity to the pattern of conduct. The entity these unintelligent demons so obsessed with me that they cannot, and you can't. When you're gang stalking, you will see you can't actually intelligently and realistically engage in the pattern of conduct. It relies on amplification of everything. Okay, there's no quiet enjoyment when everyone walking around their apartment. Oh, that creates crackling noises and ceilings. in the ceiling and in the walls is my documentation I've been documenting for years before this demon with license plate 5WUB715 moved in. The demon before her was also engaging in the same pattern of conduct, never leaving the living room. Okay, engaging in harassment and terrorism. The more that she was monitoring my documentation in concert with the Ontario Police Department, who are monitoring, acting through the unemployed elderly at Woodside Senior Apartments, where the fake sun rises and sets. And the demon before her was, excuse me, I don't know the gender of the previous one before this one upstairs, but there were three that I am cognizant of. But that doesn't mean it's limited to three, and it doesn't even mean that it's an actual resident. I've documented the entity does very, very crafty, sneaky things. And remember, the entity's doing all this, assuming that the federal government's never going to investigate. The federal government's never coming in. The federal government's never going to find out because our witchcraft is creating such a magical illusion. No one's ever going to, but all of that's out the window. So, like I said, I don't assume anything. Oh, but this demon is established as a resident. But nonetheless, before you're not assuming anything just because they're in that apartment or they're in that house doesn't mean that they actually live there. You're dealing with the government that's keeping you under surveillance. Just because a business with a logo on the vehicle is gang stalking, they are, and you document that, but that doesn't mean that they're actually representing that company. The entity is gang stalking, and they know that they're being documented. And these are the things that will also come out when the entity is this prosecution and the whole investigation is publicized. Okay, but like I said, the demons that were living in this, because Tracy Banks has been here since 2018. No. I'm sorry. Since 2000, I came here in 2019. December of 2019, Pomona police, they initiated the gang stalking by helicopter, and I documented it in writing, and then I came to, and long story short, because there's history there, but nonetheless, and by initiating, I mean initiated to the degree that it was a threat to me. The entity going out of its way for you to see the helicopter, for you to hear the helicopter. The entity's been gang stalking by helicopter, like my documentation in Upland, California, in May of 2018 shows. You can hear the helicopter in the background. You can see the fake sun over the top of my head. Right at Reading Way Apartments, where I'm living, in my apartment, where Tracy Banks was living with me in my home, and I was being monitored unbeknownst to me. That is the people of the state living with me, where I did not welcome the government into my home. A sex offense. All right. And you'll see in that video that's documented in 2018, the fake sun's right over the top of my head, and the audio shows the entity amplifying plane and helicopter activity. In 2019, December of 2018, the entity began stalking me in a helicopter and in planes in a way that was obvious. That was to communicate a threat because they'd been doing it the whole time, but I still hadn't recognized it as a matter of a pattern. Like, they made it pronounced. And they did that again. The demons that are monitoring your thoughts, and what it was that I was doing. I was writing in my journal about my observations. I was creating, if you've seen my documentation on the website, this is the POC.wordpress.com, the November 16 log of events. Log of police encounters, 109 pages. And what I've been able to hold on to throughout the years is a little less than 109 pages. But nonetheless, I've talked about it so much, and I have everything that I could find through my documentation. It's published on the website, handwritten documentation. Those are my thoughts that the entity was monitoring. The entity knew that I was documenting things. But even before that, the log of events, the October 16th log of events, when I'm recording my observations of the people of the state of stalking by strangers, which I already knew. That's something that it's also something that I did for my own benefit, because like I don't know these people. Why would you do that? So I'm documenting for my own purposes, my own personal purposes, but also because I know you have to prove that. And if it's the government, then that's quite a Herculean feat, and I understand that. It's going to take a lot of time, but it's understanding the angles of the pattern of conduct, how you can surround the government with that pattern of conduct. And it does not include having to document all the millions of people in the state of California. That's not what you have to do to get the pattern of conduct. That's relying on traditional stalking bases. This is gang stalking. So the specific environment is stalking through a specific environment, which is demonic. And the demons that are engaging in a very specific pattern of conduct while they're monitoring your thoughts with the intent to psychologically torture you, that's gang stalking. The entire state of California is engaged in this pattern of conduct, and you can be aware of that by virtue of my documentation at this venue and any venue, because the sun will never rise and set for the duration of the day at one address. And where you have that one time, That's all you need. And you also know what's going on in the rest of the state. And by implication, because you see a sun over you in Florida, you have an idea about what's going on out there too. Okay. And you're remembering the basis of this. This is in reference to the spiritual realm. Okay. This is demonic. And demons, Satan is interested in taking your mind and tormenting you, especially if he can't have me. Satan can never put his spirit. You're not possessing me. I'm sealed up with the Holy Spirit. You can't have me. So he wants to harass me and torment me through his servants, the demon possessed. That's a criminal act while the government is doing it. It's a criminal act. And so hence, while I am, thinking about Alaska Airlines, thinking about the Ontario International Airport, literally with simultaneity, the evidence of targeting the demon who is unemployed for the criminal purpose of the state, to target in a manner that is in conformity to an identifiable and heavily documented pattern of conduct is stalking via amplified activity, and doing so with impunity. Doing so even as I continuously document this podcast. All of this is shared by the state. Again, it's all state action. AVANATH Capital Management, the Woodside Senior Apartments, AVANATH employees, they're going to prison. Linda Reyes, she's going to prison. Okay, all the demons in units 33 through 64, they're going to prison. Period. And so is the entity that is gang stalking in commercial planes. So the entity is engaged in a pattern of conduct where you are not free to live at the specific environment, which is Woodside Senior Apartments. You're not free to live and work there. You're not. And that malice is also speaking to how long you're going to prison. Also, your behavior of continuously engaging in psychological torture and criminal monitoring with the state is relevant to how long you're going to sit in federal prison. To do so in concert with the state that arrives in helicopter to help you further harass and terrorize and psychologically torture is relevant to how long you're sitting in federal prison. And then you're dealing with the government actors themselves. The demon that calls himself a mayor, the demon that calls himself a chief of police or a police officer, the demon that calls himself some pilot and the president over the city airport. They're all engaged in domestic terrorism together, and they threaten together while the entity acts through the unemployed in unit number 55, who was stalking in the path, never abandoning position in order to stalk with simultaneity to what the demon is monitoring, which is evidence that belongs to the federal government, and the state, in other words, has no right and no basis to impede upon that federal investigation. That is, threaten my life so that the federal government can't get the fact that they're engaged in this matter of public corruption in order to murder and kidnap me. You're going to prison for that. And that is relevant to the demon that was gang stalking very foolishly on video, and continuously did so. The entity sounding plane activity at 11:29, the entity repeatedly sounding helicopter activity, and the demon in unit number 55 sounding by just walking. This is a lapdog. This is a servant of Satan. All right. And acting like an animal. And that's relevant to how she's going to be treated when she's being put in a mental asylum. The very evidence, it's a means of assessing, it's a means of diagnosis, it's a means of necessary treatment, and the evidence is going to be used against this third party, and it's needful. It's needful. This is somebody that's acting toward murdering someone, is interested in my genitalia, is interested in my love life, is interested in the recesses of my mind, what it is that I'm thinking about. That interest of a stranger is born of demon possession. It's Satan that's obsessed with me, and Satan is using the state of California that is gang stalking me. Right? That is manifesting, though. That's trickling down into federal charges in the physical. We're bringing it out of the spiritual realm and into the physical. You're going to be prosecuted in a real tribunal with real federal charges. Okay. And the enhancement of all of such charges are based on the impunity that the government exhibits while it is gang stalking. And so this is relevant to the people of the state. Again, I want to document them by airlines, like I just stated. And as I document them, this is the criminal act of obstruction of justice that these corrupt airlines are engaged in while they know that they're being documented. All right. They're gang stalking as an entity. That is, the people of the state are indiscriminate with regard to a specific title. The people of the state are all living at Woodside Senior Apartments in all 144 units. It's just that the ones in units 33 through 64 that are physically surrounding me, they're all going to prison. They're all going to prison for that. And everybody that I document in concert with the Ontario Police, which is video evidence, which is on podcast. I read your license plate. I document you in video. You're going to prison. You're acting, again, the rule is you gang stalk with the police. You're going to federal prison with the police. You want to act like you're some unfit. They're not even trained professionals. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't even understand the severity of everything that they continuously give me as a matter of evidence against them, against the state of California, against the people of the state who will be in federal court crying. And no one is going to care about your tears. You're a psychopath who was obsessively trying to murder somebody and then silence that person. You're going to prison. You're going to be in a padded room. You're going to be in a straitjacket, et cetera, et cetera. And no one's going to feel sorry for you because you sought to target an innocent American citizen as far as you're concerned. Because that target individual, their personal life, it's none of your business. It's none of your business. All right. So you have what is the irrational aspect of it? Why do you have strangers stalking? Why do you have the government going to the ends of using planes? That's millions of dollars. And I want to make sure it's 12:07, 11:29 p.m. is the last time the entity amplified plane activity. Terminal 2, Terminal 4, there's no vantage point, and the federal government can even do its own. There's no vantage point where you're hovering over the Woodside senior apartments from Terminal 2, Terminal 4. This is not rocket science. All right. And you know how to take off from planes, how they take off straight. I've been on planes. I've traveled the world, and I recently got on a plane, United gang stalking. United Airlines. And they take off from the airport. They're not hovering throughout the city and staying over the apartments from the airport and making all manner of U-turn to fly northwest to go over Woodside Senior Apartments from the Ontario. No, you're taking off straight up into the sky. And within minutes, you're above the clouds. I've been on plenty of planes, and when you're at that elevation, you're also not hearing it while you are on the ground inside of any home, inside of any venue. The entity is clearly targeting in a very unintelligent manner that's never been subject to common sense scrutiny. And why is that also? These are all of the aspects, all the angles where you can apply common sense analysis. Federal government, I'm talking to the feds right now, with regard to recognizing what it is that I'm telling you that you can't see. Yes, they are demons, and yes, they are targeting, and the demonic means of targeting through the amplification of audible activity, because even while they're hovering, trying to provide a real life example as to why you can hear the plane, it's amplification. It's demonic. These are the demon possessed. But also you can break down what you're looking at in the physical. You're not hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments after taking off from the Ontario International Airport. And there is no other airport that's coming from a farther distance away from the Ontario International Airport, such as the San Bernardino Airport, where you are under any circumstances. Why are you hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments, disrupting quiet enjoyment at all hours of the day and all hours of the day and night, while then as though you're taking off, you're rising in elevation from this location? It's very foolish. It's stupidity. Like I said, the demon possessed, they just have numerosity. Satan is not omnipotent. He is not all knowing. He is not, he's not witty or wise. He's just wicked. That does not equal smart, especially when you're dealing with the law. Common sense is not left. Thank God common sense is not left outside of the doors of the tribunal. But yes, you are dealing with the demonic. I will happily translate what the demon possessed are doing, even how they want to deceive you through what it is that you're looking at. Even as you see the plane, it is amplified in volume, and my evidence also demonstrates it, because I've captured many times a helicopter way far away from view, but yet it's heard inside of the apartment. What you're looking at is not going to be heard from the natural ear inside of the apartment. And I'm not wearing some super magnified hearing devices in my ear. No, I'm a normal person. And I happen to be subject to targeting by the state, and I will prosecute them in the natural and also expose about what they are in the spirit. They're demons. And that's also why they're so filthy and corrupt. They're demons. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Now, again, the Alaska Airlines, America Airlines, Avalo Airlines, Avianca, China Airlines, Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, Volaris, Amazon Prime Air, FedEx, and United Parcel Service. That's UPS. And this is also supported by my evidence, which stands alone. The P.O.C. stands alone with regard to prosecuting the state of California. And this is now giving detailed emphasis to the gang stalker, the Ontario International Airport, who acts with impunity, engaging in what is domestic terrorism in the United States. And commercial airline planes are a crucial aspect of domestic terrorism in the United States, by the way. I want you to recall 9/11. I will continuously point that out. I just want to be clear. We were merely told and provided quote unquote proof that they were foreign attackers that flew into the 9/11 Twin Towers. Oh, no, excuse me, flew into the Twin Towers. But I want to let you know the demons who are gang stalking commercial planes, they are of the same condition. And they are engaged in that same manner of criminal conduct of terrorism that is designed to psychologically torture up to and including murder, like flying into homes, flying into establishments, flying into rivers, bodies of water, flying into each other in the sky space. And it is not requiring that they be from foreign territories. The domestic enemy is here, homegrown, and they're demon possessed, and they're gang stalking with the people of the state. And that's the threat of this condition. The demon that's pacing around in apartment number 55 directly above, the demons who are gang stalking their own daughter like Tracy Banks, you're not going to put a pilot license in the hands of such psychopaths. They're murderers. They're ticking time bombs. And when Satan gives the order, that's exactly what they're going to do. And you've been looking at it. You just didn't know what you were witnessing. You were given a narrative about what happened. You were given a narrative. They're not accidents, though. They're not accidents and they're not mysteries. Okay, planes disappearing in bodies of water and all they can find is the black box, if you recall that. I remember that. I was like a teenager, 20 something. Okay, those are not accidents. The Ontario International Airport is providing a template for what the demon possessed are doing. It's domestic terrorism as a matter of law. Okay, this is domestic terrorism, and it's used through commercial planes, and they are in the same way that they go to the extent to hover over just all you're doing is stalking. It's very targeted. They don't just want to harass everybody at Woodside Senior Apartments. No, everybody at Woodside Senior Apartments is gang stalking. They're hovering over the venue in engineered light and flying higher than the fake sun that sits on the roof of this apartment building during the day, while the people of the state, the demons, are pacing all around me all day long. They're like cockroaches, critters, just crawling all around, monitoring my every move, my every thought, and everything that I document. That's how you know what my thoughts are. It's the documentation. And Satan is very hostile to the documentation. That's a threat to your life, while terrorists want to try to muzzle you so that they can accomplish murdering you. That's prison. It's mental asylum material to gang stalking commercial planes. And they are currently dressing up, polished, all right, looking sharper than two tacks, getting in position and flying planes at the Ontario International Airport, making a lot of money as pilots, making a lot of money by working on for the airlines at the Ontario International Airport. All right, and so is the corrupt government. All right, this is why the Ontario International Airport is going to be shut down, by the way. They were gang stalking while I was kidnapped. This is the Ontario International Airport that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. I documented this on January 13, 2020, where Jason Knighton, Officer 80509, and Lester Keys engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, just like I captured on video right now, gang stalking by helicopter. This is the criminal system that Jason Knighton was engaged in on with Lester Keys in concert with the people of the state on the night of January 13, 2020, where I was kidnapped by the demon possessed. That's a terrorizing event in and of itself. For a demon to touch you, they're obsessed with you. And their obsession is also violent. They're hostile. They hate you. And it's born of a spiritual nature, but they're also obsessed and they want to also harm you. It's literally a Dateline episode in the making. All right, but this is much greater than Dateline. It's a whole criminal controversy. But nonetheless, the Ontario International Airport is engaged in, and it's documented, they're engaged in kidnapping on January 30th, 2020. You will see the entity hovering over the 7-Eleven to my right while I capture that pattern of conduct. And then this is when Jason Knighton physically attacks me. All right, and then they engage in the kidnapping, manufacturing of malicious. It's malicious, but it's within a fictitious exercise of authority. It's malicious because they're making it up, okay? Making up their charges, and it's also fictitious because they don't have authority under the law. They don't even have authority to fly in these helicopters. They're going to be entirely stripped of everything that they're using right now to engage in domestic terrorism in the city of Ontario. But nonetheless, the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking by hovering over the 7-Eleven at the same time that I am documenting the license plate of the of the Ontario Police Department stalking in the path with light activity while engaged in criminal summoning, a traffic stop of the people of the state. The demon that's pacing around like a lapdog in the living room, that's what they pulled over to engage in gang stalking me, engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring. and the Ontario International Airport is engaged in kidnapping while you are sharing in the elements of monitoring, you're gang stalking together while you're engaging in the elements of monitoring in the specific environment with simultaneity to the operation of my phone. They're monitoring me and doing so while you're flying a plane. You're engaged in the kidnapping. The entity that is gang stalking engaged in kidnapping, and it includes this corrupt airport. It's going to be shut down. But you need to understand this is a means of millions of dollars going into terrorism in the state, all right, and in the city of Ontario in particular. And the mayor is not ignorant about it. This is a removal, again, additional evidence of the removal of the mayor. All right. Under no circumstances, domestic terrorism, are you going to remain in office when domestic terrorism and psychological torture of an American citizen is underway on your watch in your city, and you're a part of that city? You're a part of that same population. This is a whole gang stalking demon posing as a pastor so that you can't see how wicked he is. That demon thinks he can hide behind those titles. That's the reality of what's going on there. But I want to make sure that you're aware of this. These airlines are gang stalking, and they're also threatening my life. And this is criminal conduct that's on the watch. These public officials, these demons that are in positions of leadership, who are also aware, while the entity is engaged in federal stalking under Title 18, aware of every name that I utter in my documentation, acting with hostility to obstruct justice, to threaten my life, just sending the puppets of the Ontario Police Department, who are going to prison themselves, in concert with the people of the state at the venue, pacing around and monitoring to obstruct justice, to psychologically torture with the entity, as I document public officials in the venue and the airlines who are going to prison and mental asylums themselves. And I want to be clear, such corrupt officials that are also associated with the Ontario International Airport, namely Alan D. WAPNER and Jim BOWMAN. They're both, this is not a coincidence, they're both sitting on the leadership board of the Ontario International Airport. But I want to document all of them. They're engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring in the city of Ontario, in the state of California, and they engage in criminal conduct utilizing the threatening, clearly and obviously threatening aspect of using the corrupt police to murder and kidnap an American citizen who dare expose what they're doing as a corrupt venue. Engaging in terrorism in the United States, using commercial planes, corrupt airlines to do so, and making a ton of money in doing so. Okay. This is Alan D. WAPNER. All right. He's the president of the Ontario International Airport, the leadership board. Kurt Hagman, Ronald O. Loveridge. This is the treasurer. By the way, Kurt Hagman is currently the vice president of the leadership of the Ontario International Airport. And this corrupt secretary, Jim BOWMAN, is also a demon sitting on the Ontario City Council. And the commissioner, this corrupt female, this is her name is Julia Gao. These are corrupt public officials. These are corrupt leadership, where the entity is spending millions of dollars on stalking little old me all night long, engaging in surveillance like I documented yesterday. And the entity also engages in it. If I happen to reference, for example, Alan D. WAPNER, then they'll spend the rest of that night making sure that I can hear amplified plane activity. If I reference, like I've documented, I'll be in the apartment just using the Ontario International Airport as an example, and I hadn't documented it all day. But again, as soon as I reference them, the demons are crossing path, hovering over the Woodside senior apartments, flying at a lower elevation or flying right through the fake sun that remains here all day long, providing evidence of criminal monitoring. You're monitoring on devices, you're monitoring on the internet, you're doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, you are acting in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, which the Ontario International Airport, by virtue of documented gang stalking with the state, has engaged in and committed a kidnapping. But I want to be clear, the city that is engaged in gang stalking, and under any corrupt police department that is engaging in kidnapping as an entity, every aspect of it, the whole city has committed a kidnapping. The population has committed a kidnapping. But I've been thorough enough and specific enough, okay, understanding law and understanding the aspects of prosecution, and also a means of proving. Everything that I've stated is supported by evidence. So once you understand it, and it's fully established, nobody is hallucinating any detail. Nobody is making up anything. I don't have time to, like these demons are focused on me. I was going to college and going to law school, minding my business. So since they wanted to interfere with my career prospects to the degree that I cannot work anymore because I refuse, and I have a right to not be subject to this pattern of conduct on the work, there were too much that it cost me too much to go through all that training just for the state to try to ruin it. And so when they target it to that degree, you're forced, and it's a threat to your life. It's a threat to go to work when the entity is engaged in that level of violence in the workplace. And so the entity literally forced the prosecution on itself, because now I'm going to document you. I'm going to prove what you're doing. All right. Did I know that it was going to be at this level? Absolutely not. Even when I suspected it, I'm like, well, why would you? And any normal person would think that because, but I know that I have all my marbles. In other words, I know that I'm sane, and I also know that I'm not paranoid. But even so, you're always checking yourself, and I'll even document it to check myself. And as I documented it, and you're looking at different faces, and they're all doing the same thing. They're all doing the same thing. Even, and like you'll see in the October 16th log of events, I went from Pomona up to Lancaster. I went to all kinds of different places that I had never been. I don't want to say never because I was born in Lancaster, but meaning I had been to Lancaster outside of when I went for court, when I was practicing with the law offices of Michael Bialis, but I don't just go to Lancaster. I don't frequent Lancaster, but I went, in other words, to places that I'm not familiar with. Nobody, I don't know anybody there, just to observe and document. And the entity, the demons, they kept confirming what they're doing, and so that's just an instinct that I confirmed with tangible evidence that even myself, Erica Lorraine Spencer, I needed to check myself before I made allegations. And you're literally, as I document, Satan is always confirming it. You're literally, all I have to do is hold up my camera. All I have to do is start documenting. Okay. And that's because the demon possessed are mentally ill and they're very hostile. Satan does not like to be exposed. So at this point, at this juncture in evidence, you're witnessing Satan expose himself. Satan goes by the name of the Ontario International Airport and everybody associated with it. Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald O. Loveridge, Jim W. Bowman, Julia Gao. The corrupt airlines, again, I want to document them again. They are engaged in state surveillance, and this venue has engaged in a kidnapping. That is on the record. It is not it's not the independent basis for shutting down this venue, which is a means of domestic terrorism in the state of California. Alaska Airlines, American Airlines, Avalo Airlines, Avianca, China Airlines, Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue, Southwest, United Airlines, Volaris, Amazon, very heavily documented gang stalker, FedEx, very heavily documented gang stalker, UPS, very heavily documented gang stalker. All right, so it is currently 12:24 a.m. This is the Ontario International Airport that is gang stalking me in concert with the Ontario Police Department in order to threaten my life and safety and psychologically torture me because I'm exposing them. That's a criminal act of obstruction, which is relevant to damages that Alaska Airlines and every other airline associated with the Ontario International Airport that's gang stalking me, that they're liable for. And it's also a criminal charge. While they are psychologically torturing me with a demon that's working for the entity, and that's already established by the evidence. No sun is rising and setting at one address. I've already shown you, proven the evidence is already on the record. So every connection that I'm making amongst the population, amongst the government actors, amongst the different venues, amongst the acts, I've already connected all of those dots. It's already connected as a matter of evidence. All right. So then you're just getting to the implications. No, you're not going to. Absolutely. It's absurd but again, you're dealing with the demon possessed who are mentally ill. Okay. So you've got an unhealthy ego, which is a threat to national security for you to think that you're going to remain as a mayor. You're not remaining as a mayor. All right. It's the same with the pattern of conduct as I've exposed it in a plethora of cities and counties. And even as I ventured outside of the state of California, you saw the entity gang stalking under a fake sun in Las Vegas, Nevada, where the sun would never be sitting over the roof of Woodside Senior Apartments. That's at any time of year, ever. Daylight savings time or not, you're never reconciling that and what I documented in a whole different state. And that's how you're getting to what's going on, the greater picture about what's going on in this country. All right. This is criminal obstruction, though, and this is a personal shout out to the gang stalkers of the Ontario International Airport. They are obsessed with my genitalia. They derive pleasure from psychologically torturing and threatening the life of one who has the audacity to expose them. So I want to make sure that I specifically reference this venue that is going to be shut down as a means of terrorism in the United States. Terrorism is literally un-American. It's un-American. All right. And it, like I stated before, it is the quintessence of un-American conduct, exhibiting hostility and hatred for the Constitution. Why else would you engage in more aggressive conduct against me merely because I'm enforcing my rights and I'm advocating on behalf of the ordinary target individual who was suffering in silence. Imagine what in this circus environment, what these demented psychopaths are doing to people that are suffering with no idea what to do about it. Okay. And that's who I want you to imagine in your mind. I want you to imagine that person, them bullying that person. That's why I'm speaking so profusely against this enemy, this domestic enemy. All right. Against this bully that's actually a coward. It makes me sick. It's nauseating because this is what they do to people that can't speak up for themselves. It makes me sick to my stomach. All right. It's currently 12:27 a.m. It's now January 31st, 2025. And this is P.O.C.